five, the five elements of Kulliyat al-Khams. The early theologian, according to Ibn Khaldun, rejected these five universal on the basis that the universal or kulli and essentials or zati, zat, are merely a mental concept or al-i'tibar al-zihni, and they do not have a correspondence outside the mind. However, later theologians such as Al-Khatib and including Al-Ghazali himself, they took a little bit more accommodative attitude towards logic. They considered correct the opinion of the logicians concerning intellectual combination or tarkib al-aql in the outside existence of natural qualities and their universals. And they held the opinion that the speculation and analogical reasoning are not against the orthodox article of faith. That means that you can still use logical argument to prove that faith. Of course, if you can recapitulate what Ibn Khaldun has just said just now, in his discussion on logic, the first component is the overview. He gives a general understanding of what logic is all about, and of course, more importantly, the relations to the basic concept of man as a thinking animal. But the second component, which is not less important, also the exposition of the 8th book of Aristotle's Organon and logic as a scientific tradition and its relationship with the Islamic tradition of kalam or speculative theology. Of course, it is important to understand why Ibn Khaldun put logic as number one in his classification of intellectual science. We remember that he introduced logic as a science that enable a person to distinguish right and wrong. So this is the most important. And logical argument require logical proof and must conform with the law of logic or kanun al-mantiq. And knowledge or cognition, cognitive aspect of knowledge. Knowledge or cognition is classified into two kinds, namely tasawwur and tasdiq. In logic, it's very important to understand tasawwur and tasdiq. Tasawwur is perception, which does not require judgment. And tasdiq is apperception, which require judgment. So the purpose of logic in this context is to distinguish right from wrong, right from wrong. It rests solely upon its reliance on the human intellect. This is the point where logic is an intellectual science could be related to the basic premise that man as a thinking animal or hayawan and natiq the usefulness of logic or the superiority of logic in this context, compared with other intellectual sciences, must be seen from the point of view of its purpose in providing canons by which we can distinguish the true and the false, the certain from the uncertain. Logic provides all the rules whose sole business is to set the intellect straight to direct man toward what is correct and what is true. The second component is the exposition of 8th book of Aristotle Organon. He seemed to be very, much relying upon the 8th book of Aristotle. Of course, Aristotle was the first teacher, Al-Muallim Al-Awwal. And of course, he is very much, attached to Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, and Ibn Rushd in understanding the Greek philosophy or Greek logics. He seems to accept without reservation the logical theories of Aristotle, together with the commentaries of Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, and Ibn Rushd. Based on Ibn Khaldun descriptions, the Organon is the basis of the logical tradition. It's the main textbook of logic. In the context of Muslim world, the Aristotelian tradition was very much admired by the Muslim philosophers, particularly the scholars that I mentioned earlier, Ibn Sina, Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd. And of course, we know that Al-Farabi was also recognized as in the Muslim world as the second teacher, next to Aristotle. And later on, logic was studied as a discipline in its own right by the Muslim scholars. Ibn Khaldun, Ibn al-Khatib al-Khunaji, it becomes a single discipline by itself. Aristotle logics, despite being much admired by the Muslim philosophers, was also the target of theological criticism by the early Muslim and theologian, particularly Al-Ash'ari, Al-Baqillani, and Al-Asfirayini. However, as I mentioned earlier, Al-Ghazali and Ibn Khatib took a slightly different stance, somewhat more accommodative towards logics. And they decided that logic, you can study logic and you can use logic, and it is not in contradiction with the articles of faith. And of course, as far as Islamic theology is concerned, the contribution of logic is, we cannot deny the contribution of logic. In fact, theological argumentation was widely used in Islamic sciences such as usul fiqh. The Muslim scholars use principles of logic in usulul fiqh. to produce juridical opinions on certain issue. Right. The next is metaphysics, logic, ulum al-ilahiyat. That is the last in the hierarchy of knowledge, based on the classification made by Ibn Khaldun. Metaphysics is the last in Ibn Khaldun hierarchical order of intellectual science. Although it has a particular importance in the context of his scheme, the discussion on metaphysics is not quite lengthy in Muqaddimah. It's quite short. He put metaphysics under the domain of philosophy, whose area is, of course, beyond the world of physics. Ma wara at-tabi'ah in Arabic. Metaphysics is translated into ma wara at-tabi'ah, beyond physics, or beyond the world of physics. And many consider this subject as one of the most complex, one of the most complex but important aspects of philosophy. Based on Ibn Khaldun's own account, metaphysics as a science is also a branch of philosophy which embodies the study of existence as such. It covers all, at least all, 4 major areas. 4 major areas, including the first one is general matters that affect corporal and spiritual things, such as al-mahiyat or qualities, and oneness or wahda, plurality, al-kathra, necessity, wujub, possibility, imkan, and so on. And then it studies also the principle of existing things. The principle of existing things. Al-mabadi al-mawjudat, which are spiritual by nature. It is under the domain of ruhaniyat, spiritual by nature. And third, it studies the method by which the existing things come into being out of spiritual things, and also their hierarchies. And fourth, it studies the condition of the soul after its separation from the body and return to its beginning. And these are the 4 areas constructing the whole science of metaphysics as Ibn Khaldun understands it. It is quite complicated, sorry about that, but never mind. This is what he wrote in the Muqaddimah. So as we can see here, Ibn Khaldun's reliance still on Aristotle's in this particular is very, very obvious. And of course, to some extent, he is also heavily Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, Al-Farabi tried to make it easier for people to understand this subject. This fact can be seen particularly in Ibn Sina's Kitab As-Shifa and An-Najat. These 2 important books by Ibn Sina. And in relation to this, it is strongly presumed that Ibn Khaldun's understanding of Aristotle's metaphysics is, in most part, based on the Muslim commentators, Ibn Rushd and Ibn Sina. And also, it is a matter of fact that in history of Muslim philosophy, the Muslim philosophers, despite all their variations and trends, were heavily influenced certain major figures among the Greeks, particularly Aristotle. And in fact, which is an important, fascinating, but very difficult philosophical treatise. And it may be seen, for example, in Ibn Sina's book. He wrote. Ibn Sina tells us that he repeatedly read this work up to 40 times without grasping its meaning. 40 times. That is, Ibn Sina. Of course, if we were to read, I think we might need more than 100 times. If Ibn Sina require 40 times, we might need another 40 and double or 80 times in order to understand or grasp the meaning. However, it should be noted that these scholars were living in a society whose law and belief were based on revealed scripture. Of course, Islam or Islamic thought at that time was very, very dominant. And they had to develop a means or method by which to reconcile the philosophical ideas with revelation. So they have to, in a quote unquote, they have to Islamize these sciences. They have to be in line with the principles of Islamic teaching. And metaphysicians claim that metaphysics is a noble discipline of Fannu Sharif. Fannu Sharif. For it gives them a knowledge of existence as such. Metaphysics gives us the knowledge of existence. Ma'rifatul wujud ala ma huwa alayhi. Ma'rifatul wujud ala ma huwa alayhi. And more importantly, it is identical with the concept of happiness. Ainu sa'ada. Means that this is as far as the philosophers, this philosopher, when they have obtained that knowledge, they consider they have reached the level of sa'ada. Peaceful. Or Ainu Sa'ada. However, Ibn Khaldun does not quite agree with this, this claim. He criticized this concept, actually. In fact, he did not agree with that. He rejected it. He refuted these ideas in one of the section in this in the Muqaddimah. If we have time, then we can see the refutations made by Ibn Khaldun on these things. And of course, as far as we know in Islamic intellectual traditions, before Ibn Khaldun, Al-Hujjatullah Imam Al-Ghazali had also taken the same course of refuting many of the ideas of the metaphysicians and philosophers, particularly in his monumental books Tahabtul Falasifah and Al-Munqiz min al-Dalal, Al-Ghazali. And in Munqiz min al-Dalal, Al-Ghazali labeled these people as ilahiyun wa dahriyun. Right. Another issue that Ibn Khaldun raised in his discussion is the merger, or the mix between philosophy and theology. He used the terminology as in Arabic, mukhtalitah or khalat, which literally we can understand as mixing theology and philosophy. I quote in Muqaddimah. وصار علم الكلام مختلطا بمسائل الحكمة. So they try to mix the kalam and hikmah. As far as Ibn Khaldun is concerned, he said that such a mixture is not acceptable, and he did not accept it. It is not acceptable, and in fact, it is wrong. He argued that these two sciences are different, despite having a common subject matter. They were talking about the same things, ma wara at-tabi'ah, but it's different. Both employ human intellect, but for different purpose. This kalam al-hikmah, and the philosophy and kalam, they were used for different purpose. The former use the intellect for the purpose of supporting traditionally established truth and to refute innovators. The kalam use the intellect for the purpose of supporting traditionally established truth and to refute innovators, while falsafa or philosophy utilize it for the purpose of investigating truth by means of rational evidence. So this is very much different in terms of purpose. Kalam is used to support and to argue, to support the traditionally already established truth, and to to put the argument against the innovators. And in philosophy, they use rational for the purpose of investigating truth. And Ibn Khaldun gives some examples here of this kind of books or literature. I mean, it's the mixture of theology and philosophy in the book of by Ibn al-Khatib. The title of the book is Al-Mabahith Al-Mashriqiyah. Of course, Ibn Khaldun further explained that the main difference between these two sciences is that theology, unlike philosophy, deals with the articles of faith, which are derived from religious law, from the religious law, from the books, from the sacred books, from the revelations. These articles of faith have no reference to the human intellect whatsoever and do not depend on it. Whereas philosophy, in this case, philosophy means specifically, metaphysics in this context, on the other hand, rely entirely on the human intellect in investigating the truth. It seems that the major difference in the main purpose of using the human intellect. Ibn Khaldun is pretty clear that the speculative theology or kalam in this context, unlike in philosophy, put rational argumentations to support the articles of faith and does not involve investigating the truth. I think I do. How many minutes that I have, Brother Sharan? 5 minutes.
Yes, sure. Yeah.
I think I will finish up in 1 or 2 minutes. What was the root of confusion here? According to Ibn Khaldun, it lies the common subject matter of both theology and philosophy. Yeah, the subject matter is of course the same. Theological argumentation was understood and regarded as though it were inaugurating a search for faith through rational evidence. This is for Ibn Khaldun a clear misinterpretation. And it has to be made clear that speculative theology was invented not to investigate truth, but merely to support and refute innovators. I think I will stop at that point, inshallah. If there is any feedback from the viewers, brothers and sisters, I'm sorry it is quite complicated because if Ibn Sina also has to read 40 times, so we might need more. I mean, double than Ibn Sina, to understand this matter. Yeah, I can see Pak Habib there. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Pak Habib, for attending this lecture. So thank you very much. I hand over to Brother Sharan if there is any particular feedback, in a few minutes.
Thank you so much, Prof. It's such a very substantial discussion tonight. We were talking about the book of Organon by Aristotle. This is such a very important book. In fact, it's become the only book, is it, until today, before the new theory of this logic come up recently.
Yeah,
but before that, this is the only book that all the scholars are referring. As you said, the first teacher. So Alhamdulillah, at least we have views from the Muslim scholars, Ibn Sina, Al-Farabi, and of course Ibn Khaldun. There's a question by Brother Abdullah. You use here intellectual, akliyah science instead of rational subject science. Is there any difference between the two?
It's the same, yeah. Because it's rational science, intellectual science, it derived from the concept of anatic, hayawan anatic. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay, we have a long question by Brother Nuruddin.
Yeah.
Can you explain further the criticism of Aristotelian logic in the Islamic intellectual tradition before and after Ibn Khaldun? As far as I know, a figure like Muhammad Iqbal even stated that the Greek logic imprisoned the thought of the Muslim and hindered the progress of Islamic civilization. Does Farabi theory of truth place religion negatively because it is considered the way of the common people, not the way of the elite? Thank you.
The way of elite. Yeah, actually, it needs probably another lecture for that, to explain that. But never mind, in the history of Islamic thought, there are people who I'm actually 100% against this, this Greek tradition. But they are, the group of scholars like what we mentioned a few times, Al-Farabi, Ibn Khaldun, Al-Farabi and Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, and even Al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali wrote At-Tahabtul Falasifa. And before that, he wrote Maqasid al-Falasifa. He proved to us that he actually understands philosophy and he mastered philosophy. That's why he can produce a book called Maqasid al-Falasifa, the principles of philosophy. And after that, he produced another book, Tahabtul Falasifa. He tried to identify which part of the philosophy that is not in line with the principles of Islam. I think this is history of debate in this context. But now in our tradition, now in our education, we don't pay much attention on that debate. That is why many of us now, sometimes using a lot of logical fallacy in their thinking. They are not very much mastering the knowledge about logic. Yeah? It is important for us to, because as we mentioned just now here, to distinguish between right and wrong, we need a clear. So I think that is my response to Brother Nuruddin. I think of course it's a long debate on that. We have a long tradition and hundreds, if not thousands, of books written on this matter. So thank you very much.
Okay, Prof. We have second one from Brother Abdul Qadir Tulusang.
Yeah.
Why is al-ilahiyat called metaphysica, while Aristotle put forward metaphysics after physics? Metaphysics, on the other hand, is called ma ba'da tabi'ah, reality that transcends the physical realm. Yeah. Furthermore, what is the difference between Ibn Khaldun metaphysics and Mullah Sadra metaphysics?
Yeah, this is well, Mullah Sadra metaphysics. We can ask Professor Osman Bakar. He is expert on Mullah Sadra. This ilahiyat. I use the translation by Rosenthal. This is the translation. Just of course we can use ma wara tabi'ah and metaphysics. Ilahiyat. I think this is based on Rosenthal. I have no argument on that, because we since we are using people's translation, we use it as face value. I don't really criticize the way they they translate it from English into Arabic, because they are some kind of very different understanding of all this. But we know that we are talking about something that is beyond physics, ma wara at-tabi'ah. That is what we understand. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prof. There's another question from Brother Yusuf. I'll forward to you because it's a bit technical.
Okay.
We will look at it and maybe next week you'll bring it up.
Inshallah. Yeah.
Okay, Prof. Summary for tonight.
Thank you very much. Well, tonight we only touch on two sides: this philosophy and logic and metaphysics. So that is. I hope that we can read ourselves and explore further what does that mean by this these debates on the differences of opinion in understanding logic as well as in understanding metaphysics. Yeah? So I think I hope that what I have dwelled a little bit tonight will sort of open another window to explore another vast tradition of knowledge that we have inherited from our forefathers, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. I think the whole 4 classes that we had with you is so important. It's not easy to get this kind of a lecture in normal setup, or even taking a class. There is no class for it, or you have to register for a PhD level, or so on and so forth.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, Prof. See you next week for the 5th lecture, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.